Hello and welcome everyone. My name is Clarabelle Quintana. I am the Employer Relations Manager for the Communications Program here at National Louis University in the Career Bridge. I will be the moderator for today's webinar and with this wonderful group of panelists. We do appreciate our live attendees and anyone who is going to be listening in to the recording later on. This presentation will be recorded and shared out. We will also share out more details and bios of our panelists, so please make sure if your name isn't already listed on your Zoom that you send an email to careerbridge@nl.edu. Again, it's careerbridge@nl.edu so that you can receive the recording and follow-up resources after the presentation. We have a great group of panelists to share with you today. If you're considering a degree in communications, if you're considering a minor or a major in communications, the Career Bridge hopes to give you the perspective of a diverse group of panelists. No two people in this group have the exact same experience, so I am really excited for everybody to hear from them today. I do have some key questions to ask our panelists, so I'll just ask that everyone kind of bear with all of us for the first part of the presentation. We do want to invite you to put your questions in the Q&A pod at the bottom of the Zoom, and we will address those towards the end of the presentation. We do want to give you a variety, an idea of different career paths that you might want to consider as you're pursuing this major. So hopefully this will help you as you're making your decision to have a major in communications or a minor in communications here at National Louis University. So without further ado, I do want to kind of get the introductions going. Casey, can you go to the next slide, please? We will start with a panel introduction. We'll do that first. We're going to go through the Q&A. We'll do the follow-up questions, and then we'll have some closing remarks. We could stop the screen share now. Thank you so much. Wonderful. So, because we are limited on time and we have so much awesome information to get through, I am going to ask that we kick off this panel discussion with introductions again. If everybody could give me their name and just some information about your current career path, anything you think might be really important for students to know right off the bat, that would be really helpful. And why don't we start with you, Celicia?
Sure. My name is Celicia Weber. I am an alumni of National Louis University. I received my master's in written communications from the university. That program is no longer offered, but it was really good while it lasted. In terms of my career, I recently started in a consulting firm where I work for many companies in Chicago, the East Coast, the West Coast, and help them sell their products on websites like Amazon, Walmart, and things like that. And it's really interesting that my career went this way because my undergrad was in fashion design. So I've done a complete 360 and just turned things around, and my education at National Louis really helped influence my new path. And I'm so excited that I'll be teaching small business marketing in the fall at National Louis.
Great, thank you so much. Anamaria, do you want to go next, please?
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Anamaria Spiteri, and I work for a company called SP Plus. They're a parking management company. They're national, they're publicly traded. Their headquarters is actually here at the Aon Center, and they manage parking assets. So Millennium Garage parking, Soldier Field parking, we do O'Hare and Midway, and just a lot of parking assets across the country. I personally work in commercial real estate, so essentially the properties that are downtown that have parking that you have to pay for, I call and I try to get business for my company. So I went to U of I and I earned a marketing degree, and out of college, I basically just took some, I did some temp jobs, and then my good friend, uncle started the first on-site document destruction company in the 90s. And they called me up, they're like, hey, you got a marketing degree, why don't you come and try outside sales? And so I basically just got thrown into that field as an outside sales professional, and did that for the past 25 years. It's been a great ride. And even though I don't have a communications degree, I definitely know that communications was a huge part in my career success. And I definitely think you guys with communications can roll into that, and look forward to hearing your questions if you want to know more about it. So thank you.
Thank you. Matthew, why don't we go over to you next, please?
Sure. Greetings, everybody. My name is Matthew Seraphin. I am a co-founder of a group called Strategia Consulting, and we're kind of what we call full suite communication strategy. And so sometimes our clients can be individuals who maybe need help with social media or a brand. Sometimes it's larger companies, and we help them do sort of government relations work or crisis communication. So sometimes it can be more dramatic, and sometimes we're just helping folks tweet. But we do all kinds of communications work in Chicago. We do some lobbying work in Springfield and Washington, D.C. We have some clients also that kind of span outside of Illinois. A little more of my background. I studied, I was a communications major myself. I studied corporate communication at a college in Milwaukee, Marquette University. And I graduated from there in December 2017. So sometimes that feels like just yesterday, and sometimes like a really long time ago. But I'm really happy to be here, and I'm looking forward to sharing my communications journey and hearing from the other panelists as well.
Great, thank you so much. Juan Carlos, can we go over to you next? Oh, you're muted.
Sorry about that. My name is Juan Carlos Acevedo. I'm the Marketing and Communications Manager at the Wheeling Park District. In the Park District field, I'm also part of the marketing board for the state of Illinois. And basically, I was not a marketing or communications major either. I'm from U of I, such as Anamaria. And I completed my MBA in marketing and strategy, and I did a master's degree in pretty much park administration. And that has led me through different sides of this field. Love it so much. I'm excited to answer any questions you have, but it's a fun and exciting field.
Great, thank you so much. And Abraham.
Hello. Good afternoon. My name is Abraham Leon. I graduated from Illinois State University in 2004 with a bachelor's in mass communications with a focus in radio. It was a long journey. It took me a little while because I originally started as a history education major. And so when I started doing radio, I was actually involved in the hip hop culture a lot. I was DJ, I'm MC, and I've recorded a lot of music and done group albums, solo albums, and things of that nature. But my main focus was to become a DJ on radio. And after I got a little taste of it, I actually didn't like it too much. So I became kind of a journeyman and did a couple of different jobs, restaurant jobs. And I did finance for about 5 years. I was a representative at a technical college for a while. And I ended up, right now, I'm a teacher's aide. And I'm currently enrolled in the National Louis University middle school education program. So I'm in the midst of getting my master's right now. So I want to teach middle school math. Yeah, so it did this whole, big circle, crooked circle that my 4-year-old son would draw. But I'm in the field that I really wanted to do and started off with. So it'll take you everywhere. Beyond that, just the music thing always keeps me happy as not only a hobby, but as a form of income as well. So we'll talk a little bit more later about that.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I want to start with, I know we have 2 people in here who we have Anamaria and Juan Carlos who they didn't technically have a communications degree specific, but there are a lot of parallels to that. can one or both of you give us some insight into how you feel your classes prepared you specifically? I know you both do very different things, so I do want to give you both an opportunity to kind of give some insight on how these courses prepared you for what you're doing now in your current career.
Okay, well, I thank you, Juan. I appreciate that. So I guess for me, my my class, that was so long ago. I keep trying to remember. But I took more marketing classes. My communications classes were really during my profession in sales. And I'll just tell you that, and really it's, and even I did have a couple marketing positions, but communications is key in any job that you get. It is so important to be able to communicate to your work colleagues, to communicate with your clients, to communicate with your bosses. It is an integral part of so many fields, and I think really opens up the door for many, many avenues and pursuits. I guess education-wise, what I do, and I admire everybody here that has proceeded to get higher education and receive their master's. I do wish that I would have done that. But the other thing that I wish I would have done with marketing is, it is having a more technical background to accompany that. So if you're getting that communications degree, I would definitely think about adding something minor or something with another field of interest that you might have. If computer science is a hot market, marketing is another hot field. You see with social media, and these two, wonderful consultants are helping, with communications and companies these days, they have to communicate with consumers via social media. So coupling your communications degree with something else that's really relevant, I think that makes you in a really strong profile for corporations and for your career success as you move forward after you get your diploma. And I would also say, so because of COVID, I was furloughed for 3 months. And I was a little bit nervous. I did get my job back, but it was parking. Nobody's parking anywhere. So I was looking in sales fields, and sales for software sales and healthcare sales. So even biology, communication and biology could definitely catapult you into something. So that would be my 2 cents education wise, and things to think about as you're moving in your college career.
Awesome, thank you.
And if I can just follow up, I would agree with Anamaria. My background, I actually started doing a lot of special events. I worked 7 years doing special events for U of I, and it was crazy. It was chaotic. It was fun. But I quickly learned that even though we would contract some of these, communication and marketing projects, some of these projects, you just had to go with it. You had to learn some of these technical skills. And by technical, I mean InDesign, Photoshop, Illustrator, trying to learn a little bit of computer science. My background was IT, so I did information technology when I was an undergrad, and I did IT security, but I hated my job. It was pretty lonely in a basement for job year. And then I realized that I needed to connect with people. And I think that's where the interest started. But a lot of the classes that I was able to take from IT came out so handy in the job that I have right now. When you create a printer, when you're printing big projects or a program guide, or you're trying to create a website, I'm able to, have those conversations, but at the same time, being in different leadership positions just allows you to have those, communication skills. What I would have done, I would have taken a lot more communication classes, because there's always this doubt in my mind, am I doing this right? Am I writing it professionally enough? Is it the right way to write this to the right market? So I wish, I could have done more in the communication classes. I'm glad that I was able to take a lot of the marketing and technical ones. That has taken me, in different directions. But I would agree with Anamaria, technical skills combined with communication skills, will bring you to a different level.
Great, thank you so much. You guys are answering all of my other follow-up questions, so thank you. you know, which really I wanted to know how you might, you know, what you might want to give an examples of what you might do different, you know, had you been given the chance to just do communications and a couple of other things. And also Juan talking about the fact that I know you manage people in your role too, and projects and whatnot. And so having those skills and questioning whether or not you're doing something correctly. You know, there are classes that we have that will guide someone to do things that way. So I do want to kind of shift focus a little bit. I know Celicia and Matthew, you're both like the entrepreneurs of our group, and you both do have communications background and whatnot. I want to invite you to talk to the students about more details about your current roles and just anything you might feel might be important to them regarding their path in communications and how different it could take, like different paths it could take you in.
Well, I guess I'll start. So communications is important no matter if you're an entrepreneur or you still work for an employer. But I think as an entrepreneur and having to go out and search for new clients and things like that, communication is so important because you can make one error in a pitch or a proposal that could just lose you the deal entirely. But I like to step back from that and say, I worked in the corporate world for about 15 years. I was a buyer for many years with Sears and Kmart, and I also worked on their e-commerce team. And then in 2015, I took a leap of faith after my first year at National Lewis. And I was like, you know, I need to go out and start trying to really go after my passion of being an entrepreneur, but I had to make a plan. So, with everything that happened and getting my master's degree, I will say that what I learned and just all of the new courage that I found to really communicate my thoughts, it really helped me in my career. I remember after I received my master's degree, at that time I was still working corporate, I marched into my VP's office and said, you know, I've been working here for almost 2 years. I now have a higher education, which I can offer you more now. And I was doing a lot of communication types of things in my role. And I said, you know, there are other opportunities that I can go after, but I'd love to stay here. And the next day, I got promoted and my salary increased substantially. And it was about how I communicated. I wasn't demanding. I wasn't I was being assertive, but in a very professional way. And because I had practiced what I wanted to say and I clearly communicated my thoughts, that is how I was able to leap into the career that I'm in now. And so now, just recently, I completely left the corporate world after I really felt strong and I knew that I had a business that could suffice and, you know, take care of me financially. And the same thing happened. I had to articulate my thoughts and to communicate with the people that I was working with corporately, and now some of those people are now my clients, and now I have a small team, and it's been pretty awesome. But communication in the entrepreneurial side of it is so important because it can actually make or break whether or not you're successful in what you're doing.
I love that. You talked a lot about professional development and how these classes really help in professional development early on and help you to develop your profession. So that's great. Matthew?
Yes, first of all, it's fantastic to hear your journey, Celicia, and everything you've been through. I do not. I love living at home during quarantine. My dad's asking for my mom's car keys. I do not have them. So threw me off a little bit. I think what's really interesting for me, and I love to hear from Celicia, her kind of journey through being through the corporate world and then kind of feeling secure and ready to take that next step to kind of be an entrepreneur. I was very fortunate in that I have two wonderful business partners who are a little more advanced in age than myself, who were willing to sort of take a chance on me. And I was very secure and able to do that with them. And I've been able to see sort of through these wonderful mentors, their connections and how similarly to Celicia in their professional history and their roles, previous roles they've had, working those relationships and sort of prior friends and how those have become clients, or prior clients who are now our clients again at their new company with me. And so I can't speak exactly to, the full development of, I was very fortunate in that only a few years after graduation, I've been able to start this experience. But one thing I'll kind of connect it to my education experience is that one thing I feel like it wasn't talked about too much in my communications courses was how technically every industry has communications work, right? And I think that's something that Anamaria said about how, truly communications is key to every role, every position, every industry, right? And so, sometimes you have people who say, oh, I want to work in a STEM field, or, oh, I want to work in sports, or I want to work in healthcare. And every one of those industries, every company in those industries has communications people, right? They have people who do internal communications, external communications. And connecting to my role right now, we have clients that span a few different industries. And so I get kind of a taste of a lot of different things. And, that's sort of something to be kind of thinking of as you're thinking about communications. Would you like to work maybe what they call in-house, where maybe you work for like the Chicago Bulls doing their communications, or do you work for a firm like where I work with Strategia, where you work with a couple different companies and kind of an exposure and a taste of different types of industries, right? Those are two kind of approaches to communications work in general. The last thing I'll say, and this was a piece that Anamaria said I loved, was having a minor or a double major if you're able to sort of partner those interests. My minor was Spanish language because I knew that I spoke Spanish pretty well, but not fluently. And I knew that if I was able to be confident in my Spanish through my college career, I could then maybe use it. And now I am at a point where sometimes for clients, I can, draft documents bilingually in Spanish and English for them. And that's an opportunity that not all other, consultants can bring to the table. So that's something that looking at your different strengths, different opportunities you have, and sort of thinking about that as you consider your majors and minors.
Great, thank you so much. And not to leave you out, Abraham, I definitely want to invite you to talk more about, your experience. I know that you ran a radio station, you do music, you produce, but you also want to be a teacher, math teacher. So, if you could shed some light on that for our students and listeners.
Well, for the radio aspect, I'd always been, like I said, involved in hip hop culture, but mainly just music in general. Like I grew up, my uncle's a singer, my grandmother's a singer, my brother was a rapper and a dancer, and then my mom sang, but she didn't sing professionally. So I came from a musical family. So the radio was always on, tapes were always on, records, everything, anything musically you can throw at us, it was on the majority of the day. So I found myself wanting to be the Puerto Rican Casey Kasem, like growing up, I was listening to him and I was like, this, I kind of wanted to be that guy. But then it was just, I went to college over at Illinois State. I was at a wonderful radio station that they had there. I was able to become the urban music director over there. So, they had the rock side and the urban side. And I was able to see how songs chart, how certain demographics react to the songs and everything like that. And then I would apply that to when I would have to DJ on the weekends. So I would DJ different parties and everything. So sometimes I would have records like that would not be released for like another month, and I could test them out and see how the crowds would react. And sometimes it would be kind of funny because I would see one week they were dead to them, but the next week, if it came on MTV or on the radio, forget about it. I couldn't play that record enough. So it's always interesting to see demographic work live. It's just such an interesting concept when it came down to it. As I worked behind the scenes and did some interning, I didn't feel like I had the freedom to do what I wanted to do. And like a lot of people in here, it just seems like a lot of people wanted to, branch out on their own or work into their own strength. So I didn't want to bother with the radio politics. I just didn't like it. And to me, I always have been a teacher. So every job I ever had, I was either a trainer or I was teaching the next person to do a job that, you know, that they were going to either take over for me, or I was, you know, going up in another level. So teaching for me has always been a natural thing. My grandmother used to teach a lot of the people in the neighborhood English from growing up, and a lot of the people that she worked in with the factories, she used to, you know, teach them, you know, what their voting rights were when it came to things going on in the factory and all that. So, you know, a lot of this stuff is just, you know, genetics at this point, and it worked in my favor. So going into teaching, it was kind of more of a natural fit. I wanted to teach for a long time. So going into the program over at National Louis has been a godsend, because I really didn't have a focus. But then when I sat down with my counselor and I said, hey, what am I going to do here? And they said, you know, you actually done very well in your math courses. So have you thought about teaching math? And, you know, when I started substitute teaching, it was just a fit. So, you know, the person who was talking to me actually had a communication degree. So when I was talking to them about it, I had that natural, you know, conversation with them. It felt like somebody knew where I was going. So those communications degrees come in handy. And yes, I know it's been said already, double down on your minors. If I actually graduated with a mass communication degree, double minor, history and public relations. So I'm able to cover the board on a lot of things. And I've been with different companies. I've done finance. I was able to help them out with different little marketing strategies and things like that. So like I said, demographic work, music, all that other stuff, you know, the mass communication degree paid off for me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Wow, you guys are really answering all of my questions in your responses. I guess what we'll do, so we'll go around, and I know we have a few student questions too, but I definitely want to go around and just ask everyone to share maybe one challenge in your career path. I know you've shared like, a lot of this has been shared. So kind of want to like, you know, nail it home for the students. One challenge in your career path, and then one upside to the courses that you took in while you were in your degree program, whether it was your undergraduate or your grad program, that you really feel elevated your career. I know everybody has kind of a eclectic background of marketing communications. A good chunk, I mean, everybody has had a communications course. So if you guys could go around, we can start with you, Juan. Not to put you on the spot.
Oh, no.
Not to put you on the spot.
So as you
One
were
challenge
asking,
and one like positive thing.
so that challenge becomes a positive right away, because you know, when I was an undergrad at U of I remember getting this email from a professor saying, we're seeking Spanish speakers, you know, to conduct surveys in Chicago. I needed a summer job. I replied right away. And, you know, it tells you a lot. I replied right away professionally. I went online. I was trying to find how to respond. I got the job that same night. And that became my career, honestly. I was in IT doing all this work. This professor introduced me into the park world. You know, it was Parks and Recreation. So I started doing research for the Chicago Park District, Rockford, Elgin. You know, similar to Matthew, I had an opportunity to, you know, to see different organizations, how they worked. The hard part is, how do I make this a career? I liked it. I really absolutely loved it. But, you know, at the same time, you have life happening. You got to pay the bills. You got to make sure that you make a job out of this. So I loved park world. A lot of people don't realize even park recreation, it could be a job. So that was hard, even in my own culture. Like, Mom, I'm going to work in parks, you know, like, wait, where are you going to college for? So anyways, it was just interesting. It was a challenge for me because it was something new. I was the first one in my family trying to do this. You know, everyone's in business or, you know, the normal, you know, fields. But what I realized quickly is that there's a lot of fields out there. You know, if you aren't in marketing and communications and I want to say generic, but general fields, you learn a lot of skills But then the second challenge becomes pick a field. Now you have the skills, now pick a field. Is it going to be healthcare? Is it going to be education? Is it going to be, parks? You got to find that passion too. I feel like a lot of people focus so much on getting the skills, and that was me initially. But then once I found the field that I loved, my skills just kind of like blossomed, I was doing it passionately and I was just trying to learn more skills. So that challenge became right away, I would say my benefit. Today, I'm just glad to say that I like what I do. I hope that I answer your question. But just those coursework that I was able to take in college, I was the opposite. I had a lot more technical skills than other social science skills, but I was able to develop them later. Later, it was really challenging for me to figure that out on my own. It takes a matter of time to find your field and be able to excel in your skills in the field that you love.
That was perfect. Yeah, that was a great response to the question, because I really wanted students to understand that you work in a park district, you run the marketing and communications for a park district. So you could think outside of the box when you're in a communications degree and what your path might be. So anybody else want to go next?
I'll take it.
Sure.
Well, and since you're the park district, it's a federal position, right, Juan?
Oh yeah.
So
it's a municipal more than federal. Yeah.
Okay, but you still have all the benefits. So you have great health care, you got great vacation, right? You got good days, personal days. So that's awesome. That's another thing. When you graduate, you can look into the government, because I actually started looking in government jobs, and they don't want people they won't take a lot of people they want to take people right out of college. But anyway, getting back to Clarabelle's initial question about challenges and everything. First, I just want to start with a couple stories. The first one is, when I was in my 20s, my aunt, she had just retired. She was working at Clemente High School, and she was teaching a business class, and she asked me to speak. And I went, and I was in front of it was 2 classes, so there were about 60 seniors there from Clemente High School. And my last question was, how many of you are considering going to college? And if you don't know about Clemente High School, it's an all Hispanic high school in the north side of Chicago in Humboldt Park, but I think one person raised their hand. And it was a shocker to me, because I had been raised in a family where it was assumed that I was going to college. There was no questions. I was very fortunate. So I just want to commend all the students that are here and going to school and have the ambition and are going to get your degrees, because that in itself, even though you're trying to figure out what's your degree, is huge. And I'll tell you why it is huge. It leads to my second story. I'm part of the Women's Advisory Forum for my company, SP Plus. It just started, and we were meeting with a lot of the women in the organization. So they're women that are it's a very male-dominated industry. So it's the women that are running parking garages, right? Not a lot of them, or in valet, not a lot of them. And one woman, she's actually in bookkeeping, and she said to me, she's like, Anamaria, the best thing you can do is try to get the corporate human resource policy of you have to have a degree to get above a certain level in the organization. So she had 20 years experience within the company, but because she did not have a degree, she was not able to move up to a VP or to a director title. And so I'm fighting for this. But anyway, so it just goes to show you guys are getting a communications degree, or whether you get a minor or a major, I think it's just, it's very important that you're going through it. So be really, really proud of yourselves in that respect. And I don't know if they answer your questions, but it's like, I feel like I have to give life lessons, because
you did great. You did great.
And I'm just going to say one more thing in terms of, everybody's talking about everybody's following their passions. I think that's key right now. You guys are at a, your growth and trying to figure out what you want to do. Like, don't be afraid, just follow what you love, and things will come, energy will come, and you will just, your career and your college career, you know, experiences are all going to, you know, develop, and you're going to find yourself just, if you put yourself out there, then things will happen. If things will manifest.
No, that was great. That was great because you brought up the point that you're in an organization for women, like you are a leader of women in your field, right? So just so everyone, all the listeners, you know, Anamaria works in a industry. She's parking lots. Like she sells and manages parking garages. That is another path that you could take. And I know we all appreciate, you're motivating everybody here. So thank you. So definitely going to this is just a great example of how having these skills that you can come from this degree can lead to different areas and different opportunities. Even in leadership. So who wants to go next? Matthew, Celicia.
Well,
Matthew.
I go ahead.
Okay. So I'll start with the challenges. Having an undergrad degree in fashion design and trying to move over to help a company manage millions of dollars of business is not something that you generally see, because it's looked at, oh, you're more of a creative person, so you should continue to just design clothes. And I did that for a number of years and I really enjoyed it. But the challenge was when I saw that I was analytical and I could also use my creative side and started trying to get into the marketing world as well as the sales world, it was such a challenge because a lot of leaders didn't have faith in me. And at the time I was really young and just trying to make myself, just really trying to transition my career. So that was another reason why it was important for me to go back to get my master's degree. And so I just want to encourage the students, you may get your undergrad in one thing and maybe you did not take the opportunity to have a double minor or things like that. You're still not at a loss completely, because you can always go back to school for something else. So that was one thing that really helped me with that challenge. And I like to change the focus away from my day-to-day job. So outside of my my 9 to 5, so to speak, I do nonprofit events to bring awareness to human trafficking. I am extremely passionate about this because you'd be surprised how many young people that were on really great paths right here in Chicago, they end up getting trapped and enslaved by human trafficking. So outside of work, that is something that I really like to do, to give my time into. So having more of a communications background now, I'm able to take such a daunting, unfortunate topic and to make it into something where it's easier for people to talk about. So I host an event every year in January because that's Anti-Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And I make it creative. Since my undergrad is in fashion design, I use those skills. I do a huge fashion show, and it's really great when I see leaders from National Lewis come to support the event. But at the event, I have different speakers get up and to talk about such a hard subject and an issue that we're dealing with, not just in Chicago, but globally. And with them communicating with the audience about the dangers of different activities that you may do online and things like that. And then having the fashion show right after that. Being able to use the communication skills that I've gained over the years and being able to talk about such a hard subject and bring some creativity to it so that we can host an event that's fun and that's engaging, but at the same time, we're able to communicate how important it is to bring awareness to this subject. So I kind of wanted to give a different aspect, not just on the corporate or the entrepreneurial side, but on like the nonprofit side and how your skills can be used in that aspect as well.
Thank you so much.
Count me in. I want to help support that.
Okay, I will.
Tell me. I'm serious.
Sure knows how I feel. Yeah. We all want to. Thank you so much. That's that brings in a good point again of like how, speaking to what Anamaria said, your passions and you're passionate about raising awareness. And so your communications program and your skills have really helped you to elevate even your amazing event that I hope to be able to attend myself. Awesome. Matthew? I'm sorry, Abraham?
What Abraham?
Well, I was gonna say, as far as the challenges go, my biggest challenge was time management as a undergrad. Now, for me, I was very busy. I was pretty much a lead in most of everything I did. So I was the president of the Latino organization at the campus. I was the urban music director. I was the dean of pledges of my fraternity. I was wherever I worked, I was the trainer. So what I was doing, I was probably getting about 4, maybe 5 hours max of sleep every night. But you're young. Sometimes it's like you're going to go through that so you can see where your limits are. I'm not saying to go without sleep, because sleep is very important. And in retrospect, I wish I could have gotten a little bit more sleep in college. But at the same time, I got to experience that. And that's a big thing, is experiences. So the time management aspect, you have to keep into consideration, like primary number one thing. Keep your time. Make sure you manage your time very well, because, you can't throw yourself into everything, but at the same time, when you put yourself out there and you try to get those experiences, it helps you a lot. Because now I'm working 2 jobs, going to school, being a father, and still trying to find time to do my music, which I still managed to do. But that's because I was able to set myself up later on to say, this is what I can do now, later on. And for those of you who run companies, you know that sometimes you have to be able to change things on a whim. Something might come up, like that email comes up at 1:30 in the morning, and it's like, well, gotta get to it now, and that'll happen. Sometimes I'll get communication from a producer of mine that said, I need this in the next 5 hours. Gotta get up and gotta do it. So, being able to manage your time is very key, because, it applies to everything else you're going to do.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
I'm going to piggyback right off what Abraham said, because I would just echo that. I related a lot to what he was talking about, pursuing many different experiences, in that college time, and trying to, do a lot of different things. For me, I was always a photographer as well. I was a photographer in high school, and I took pictures for fun, and it was the high school paper. And when I first entered my college up in Milwaukee, I was thinking maybe I should study photography or something. And so I didn't know what I wanted to do. I ended up working for the student media organization for my university, for my college, and I took pictures that way. And that ended up being something where now it's a service I can even offer to clients. And I do some freelance work as well. And it's something that, similarly, like, to find something that you're passionate about, and you're also kind of marrying together with kind of your day job, what you're doing. For me, I think one of my most challenges, I think it was Juan Carlos who talked about, how do you make this a career? How do you find like a field for what you're looking for, right? And I think it's interesting, and it's a little perspective shift, because if you study accounting, you're going to be an accountant, right? Maybe if you go to trade school to be a carpenter, you're going to be a carpenter. You're learning carpentry, right? When you have a communications degree, you should be a communicator, but you can be a communicator in so many different ways. And being a good a professional communicator truly can help you in any field. And I know I've said that a few times, but I think that's why, even if you end up having a different major, having a minor in communications can really help you with where you want to go. So I guess for me, a challenge was, how do I make communications a career? How do I find a field that I can marry some of, my passions of photography, and we now have nonprofit work clients that we have. Some we just do pro bono, and some we do, at a much reduced rate than our normal consulting. I'll say one more nonprofit point, that one of our clients is the Phil Rock Center, which is over in Glen Ellen. The Phil J. Rock Center is a school for kids in Illinois who are deafblind. And so it's not just a visually impaired or a hearing impaired school, but it's for kids who have both special needs. So it's children who were born with some aspect of deaf and blindness. And generally it's also, their special needs have a host of other special needs associated, right? And a way that I was able to my company was able to kind of take on this client completely pro bono was that, I'm trying to make it kind of high level. We ended up being a lobbyist for them down in Springfield, because they needed to update their building. It was no longer ADA compliant, and there were a lot of issues with the structure, and there was asbestos in the basement, and they needed a new air conditioning system. And these are some of our most vulnerable students in our state. And kids come up to Glen Ellen from all corners of Illinois because it's one of the only publicly funded deaf-blind schools in the state. And we were able to take on that work pro bono and help them and lobby in Springfield, which means have meetings with legislators and state senators and get them to basically sign some laws that say that they'll get more funding. And that was a really interesting example for me because similar to Celicia, we were able to use what we do and work, but helping out at the same time. It's like, this is a nonprofit that we're helping out, we're assisting, but we're doing things we normally do for paying clients, but for them on their behalf. And it's a really good feel-good story that when you're able to get that win, where you're able to get $6 million appropriated for the building, which is a lot of money. But when you look at the big state budgets and the big laws, it's actually not that much. And it was an easy ask for legislators to say, hey, help out the kids, But that was just a story that came into mind when I was thinking of Celicia's passions and her kind of nonprofit work. It's great to find ways that you can use your strengths to also help out organizations besides your normal orgs.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Matthew. Excellent points. So we do have 2 questions that I wanted to get to before we kind of wrap things up. In NLU's communication program, students learn about different types of communications: verbal, nonverbal, written, visual, auditory. Which of these areas do you utilize in your roles in communications today? And we could do another quick round robin of which of these types of communications do you guys use in your roles today? Verbal, nonverbal, written, visual, auditory. There may be a follow-up too, depending.
Well, I'll start really quick. All of them. It's basically all of them. As far as my role, marketing and communications, I would split this into 2 sides. One is the communication side. As Anamaria was saying, we are a municipal, so we have a lot of legal things that we need to communicate to our residents. So there's a lot of press releases, board meetings, agendas, minutes that we need to legally abide for. Plus, as residents, you guys pay taxes. So we are a government body that we need to make sure that we're communicating everything in a way that people will understand and that it's easily accessible. So it could be, we'll create a video, we'll create a press release, we'll put it on the website, anything we can to transfer that information. On the other side, you have marketing. And then on the marketing side, you're trying to sell something. You're trying to, and you use the communication sales. So it goes hand in hand, but on the marketing side, you have the graphic design, you use the social media a little bit more, you use a lot of photography. I'm not a photographer, but I've taken I have my cameras. So you start building all these little things, but you use all of them. And the more you learn how to take a picture, how to write a press release, how to write, something on social media, how to read analytics, how to board meetings work and agendas, the more you grasp yourself into a lot of these skills, the more successful and the easier it is to tackle those challenges. And I'll finish this way, even right now in COVID season, no one was really prepared in a way to communicate all these changes and rules to our staff and, cancellations in schools. And it was just dramatic. And if you're talking about risk management and risk communication, we all got a crash course in the last 4 months. So just being able to say, okay, let's focus on the message, and you no longer work on the skill. You're just working on, let's just get the message. And you have these different audio, verbal signs everywhere you can. Wash your hands, do this, school canceled. We do weddings, we do preschool, we do after school programs. So just think about all these people who are reading the same message. You need pictures and words that mean a lot, but can tell you things in a quick, clear way. So all of them.
Awesome. Thank you. Abraham?
If I'm all of them, I'm just gonna piggyback off of what Juan said. Literally, I'm a teacher's aide. I'm in the English as a second language program. So I deal with students that have multiple languages, and they Sometimes I have to be able to say, all right, look on their face, they look confused, or like I need to be able to hear, inflections in their voices and saying like, they sound a little distressed. There's a little bit of everything that goes into that. So it's being aware and being able to communicate on all levels of being able to write, read it, speak it, listen, especially the listening part. If anything that I ever learned from my time in finance was that people will tell you exactly what's wrong if you just listen. And that's a big, especially if you're going to go into business, if you're a good listener, if you're a great listener, you are going to have no issues whatsoever when you go into any kind of business.
Thank you. Celicia?
Had to unmute myself. I'll just piggyback off of what everyone else is saying because it's so true, but I'll just briefly give my, the way that I use all forms. You need the audio, verbal, written, even the way that you talk. As you can see, I use my hands a lot. Sometimes I have to minimize that when I'm on Zoom calls, but even your demeanor, like if a client is upsetting me because I'm the consultant and I know how to do this, I've been doing this a long time, and you're so, you really think that you might know, like even that you have to, the way that you present yourself, your attitude, your demeanor, all of those things. But I'll just briefly say that because I help companies sell their products on Amazon, for example. So with COVID happening, people aren't necessarily going to stores the way that they used to. So that's driving a lot of traffic online. And it is my job when you're on Amazon to get you to purchase what I'm trying to sell you. So I have to be very, very clear about what the product is, how it's going to change your life. And I do that through copy, like words. I do that through videos. You can hear the audio to make you really want to buy that. So I have to be very compelling. And the only way that I can get you to purchase this product is by communicating why it's going to change your life and why that you need it. And in turn, just help these companies make more money. So every aspect of communication, I think almost any job that you do, you're going to use all forms.
Wonderful, thank you. I think we should still have everyone. I know, even though you're going to probably all say the same thing, but if there's a favorite.
I can piggyback off of what Celicia said.
Sure.
I think, and she's really drilling down to the fact that you have to be as succinct as possible when you communicate, and short. Like you have to like get what you want to say in a very concise thing. So sometimes that takes several drafts, right? So I email a lot I have to email to, I just did a group email today for a big list of people that I'm trying to get business with, right? So I had to do like a grabbing sentence, like, hey, this is me, and actually something kind of to bond with them. Then I gave, a little bit of what we're doing that can help support them. Then I had to do a little call to action. Like, would you place 15 minutes of your time? Can we talk about it for 15 minutes of your time, later this week, blah, blah, blah. But it was several versions to get that down to where I wanted it, so that I hopefully will be an effective a blast email for these people, so I can start, uncovering opportunities for new business for my company. So definitely, like when your communications, email I think is really important in my world. And then also verbal, for myself in sales, I do have to present in front of people. Now it's kind of via Zoom. And I'm just gonna throw out a little life lesson here, guys, students, just because, and hopefully you remember this when you're in the corporate world after you have your degree and you guys are doing amazing. If you are ever in a toxic environment and have a bad boss, get out.
Yeah.
Just get out, because
Use your communication skills and get out.
I worked for a guy for 4 years, and he pitted team members against each other. He was belittling. It killed my confidence, and it really made me, as a public speaker, get very nervous. And I wish I would have just got out after the 6 months and I knew he was horrible. So in terms of communication, there's really horrible communicators out there. And if it's your boss and you can't do anything, I'm going to leave it at that.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Matthew?
I
Everything.
Everything I've got, and I'm going to tie a bunch of things together. I love when Abraham was talking about the different styles of music for different sort of audiences. And I think that works for all types of communication. You have to know your audience and who you're talking to, which is what Celicia was saying about different messages for different people, right? So depending on what messages you're trying to communicate in whatever industry, if you're talking to an internal audience, maybe it's a Zoom chat with the president. If it's an external audience, maybe it is a press release, right? So it's sort of, there's different messages are better sorted for different types of communication. And it's okay to have different messages, even if the overarching message is the same. The one thing is making sure that there is always synergy throughout all of the messages that's coming out from your organization. You don't want to say one thing to one person and another thing completely to another person. That's where you see organizations get in trouble. And then they hire people like me and Celicia and others who, need to help them. And the last thing is that Anamaria mentioned was short. And an expression we use almost daily with clients is less is more, right? Sometimes clients will give us a letter that they want to send out from, and I'll say connected to Juan Carlos. We have a lot of municipality clients. We work with Clarendon Hills, Hinsdale, Western Springs, Orland. I think we've done some work with Orland Park actually, and a few different, DuPage Mayor's Managers Conference. And they'll have this huge letter to really say maybe that water will be shut off over the weekend, right? Say water will be shut off over the weekend. You don't have to say all this stuff. It's like maybe you give one little paragraph on that in the first sentence, so the audience who's reading it knows exactly what they need to know right away. But I think sometimes you feel like, oh, I got to write this big thing, or it has to be a big lengthy thing. But truly, like Anamaria said, it's short. Less is more. We say that with clients every single day. Less is more. And truly, that's a big thing that I'll leave you with.
Just like Juan Carlos, I did this for you. Here's a sign. Wash your hands.
That's perfect.
Thank you all so much. This has been very informative. I know, students might have other questions. So anybody who's listening live actually anybody who's going to be listening to the recording, because we're actually going to be at the top of the hour soon, we definitely want to invite you to send an email to the Career Bridge should you have any other questions. We can pull up the slide really quickly. Awesome, thank you. So for more information about the communications program, the minor, the major, and specific classes, we definitely want to encourage you to communicate with your success coach and academic advisor. I do want to thank all of you panelists. This was fantastic. Literally all of my questions, I had very queued up questions for very specific, and you guys were just phenomenal with answering them before you even asked them. Your communication skills are top notch, at all levels. I do want to also thank anybody who's here listening live, and I also want to thank you for listening to the recording. We do have the department chair, Elizabeth Schaefer. We're going to invite her to say a few closing words. From the Career Bridge and from the Employee Relations team, thank you all for participating, and I will pass it over to you, Elizabeth.
Thank you so much, Clarabelle. That was so much fun. Oh my gosh, I love the variety. It's so nice to meet you all and everyone out there. I'm Elizabeth. I'm the director of the communications program. And just really I'm trying to be succinct here, right? There's so much to say about the communications program, the major and the minor, but I'll just leave it with, it's really for anyone who has a passion, whether it's writing or whether it's social media, whether it's interpersonal communications, really any kind of communications that really can apply across all industries. So it's fun, it's creative, it's practical, and we would love to have you on board.
Awesome.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you, everyone. We can stop the recording now because